actually record onto this computer.
Oh my goodness, Diane Bot, look at you.
Okay. Right, so if everybody wouldn't mind, go ahead and muting your mics, or I can do that.
Well, where the heck is my link to the actual conference?
When you click on the schedule.
Oh, okay, I'll go back to this. Uh-huh.
Okay, all right,
No.
so
Another one.
everyone, I'm hearing some back talking from, you could please, thank you, mute yourselves. So I'm Margie Shepard and I'm your room host today. I'm with the network of the National Library of Medicine, and I'm located in Olathe today hosting this room. And our first presentation is from Betsy Davis. She's the library director at Montezuma. Take it away, Betsy.
Moundridge.
I'm sorry, Moundridge. I've got my Montezuma in my brain. I just saw that somewhere, so go ahead.
Okay, it starts with the letter M, so we're
it's out there by Dodge. I know where it is.
Yeah, well, I'm not quite out near Dodge.
I'm sorry, I know where you are.
Hours.
You're down by Salina, so.
Yes.
Right.
All right, well, hello from Moundridge. I just want to let you know we've actually had kind of an exciting morning as far as emergency vehicles here today, and I'm home with my dog and she howls. So if another emergency vehicle goes by, just prepare for a little howl from my pups. That aside, if I will ask some questions during this presentation, and these are more, I mean, you can absolutely write them in the chat if you want to, but this is more for like your own reflection and just thinking about where do I stand like right now. So, you know, if you have a piece of paper and a pencil, you know, you can jot them down, you can type them in the chat, but they're just more for you for reflection. Okay. Let's start. Can everybody see my screen and just my screen and not my notes? Perfect. All right. Well, hello from Moundridge. First, I want to say thank you for trusting me with your time, and I do hope that you get something out of this session. This session is actually an experiment with my own growth and learning. A while back, I realized that and as I first became a director, I didn't realize how much I didn't know about motivating my staff. And so instead of saying, oh, this is as good as it's gonna get, I'm just gonna be like, not so great, I decided to experiment, read, make mistakes, and I learned. So I am by all means not an expert, but I am growing in my own understanding on how to foster growth and self-directed learning in both my staff and myself. So I first became interested in growth mindset and motivation after listening to a library leadership podcast. And this is done by the Emporia State University, and it was on motivation. And then it introduced me to the Hertzberg two-factor hygiene theory, which in this idea that things either add to satisfaction or decrease from dissatisfaction. The first category is associated with the need for growth or self-actualization. These are the things that add to satisfaction. And these are motivation factors. The other category is related to the need to avoid unpleasantness. These are hygiene factors. Hygiene factors are like policies, administration, relationship with supervisors, interpersonal relations, working conditions, salary, etc. But the motivation factor, the motivation portion of the theory was really what intrigued me and what I wanted to learn more about. So I began my quest into looking into motivation, specifically growth. And I started by reading Daniel Pink's book, Drive. And then after a very fortuitous ILL request, I found my way to Dr. Dweck and her work in growth mindset. And while her research is done with children in the school setting, but her results and practices have been applied to adults and in workplaces. So I'm going to start you out with a question. When do you feel smart? Do you feel smart when you are flawless? Or do you feel smart when you are learning? So how you answered that question might help you understand if you are a person that has more of a fixed mindset or more of a growth mindset. So let's first define what a fixed mindset and growth mindset are. A fixed mindset assumes that character, intelligence, and creative ability are static. A fixed mindset, someone with a fixed mindset, will try to avoid failure to maintain an appearance and to try to avoid the appearance of being dumb, weak, slow, etc. In a growth mindset, people believe that their basic abilities can be developed through dedication and work. Brains and talent are just the starting point. This view creates the love of learning and resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. Folks with growth mindset thrive on challenges and view failure as a springboard for stretching our existing abilities. So back to that question. If you are one of those who answered, I feel smart when I am flawless, you might be operating under and in a fixed mindset. And to be honest, I know that I have definitely been in this category. If you answered that I feel smartest when I'm learning, you might be operating in a growth mindset. So these mindsets can be present in people simultaneously.
You got muted, Betsy.
Betsy, you're muted.
Has it been like that for a while?
No, it just happened. So go ahead.
Oh,
you're
that's
good.
Weird. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So I was going to give you examples of how in my life I have been both fixed mindset and growth mindset. And we're going to start with growth. So I started baking and I tried yeast breads and they were awful. They tasted like gross beer and they were really dense and mostly we just threw them away. And I tried them a couple times and I was like, maybe this is not quite for me. And then I started watching the Great British Baking Show. And that was the turning point in my baking. And I learned from how they did things. And then I practiced and then I sampled. And then I watched and I read different recipes. I tried it again. And little by little, my bread became less disgusting. And I actively was trying to learn, and I was okay with my failures. And actually, sharing my bakes and seeing, getting feedback from people really helped me, and I was able to develop my baking skills. However, math and science is a slightly different story for me. I feel very comfortable up to about, I would say an 8th grade level in both categories, but anything above that, and I start to get a little bit uncomfortable. And I try not to engage with people when discussing things like that or trying to actively do problems or whatever that are a little bit tricky for me, because I want to maintain this visage of being good at math. So I don't want to challenge myself, otherwise I will shatter that. And so sometimes I'll make excuses or I'll joke about my inability just to lessen the damage and kind of save face, because I don't want to look stupid. So this can also happen in library land. How many of you guys have ever had someone come up to the circulation desk with an iPad and say, let me get one of the other staff, they are younger, they know how to deal with this? That you are operating under a fixed mindset. You're thinking, my abilities are here, I cannot learn and I cannot help you to help this patron. A growth mindset example in the library is when someone comes in and says, I have this question. There's a rumor in my family that we used to take care of Jack Daniels when he lived in South Carolina. Can you help me substantiate this? And so you dive in, you start looking at resources. You're not sure if you're going to be able to find it, but you try, and maybe you don't get the desired result, but you keep learning and digging. And so that's an operating under more of a growth mindset. So this is a question time for you guys. I want you to take some time and think about a time when you were definitely in a fixed mindset. So when you thought your abilities capped here and you didn't want to push yourself because you didn't want to look stupid, you didn't want to look weak, you didn't want to look something other than what you thought of yourself. Again, you don't have to write it down for anybody else to see, but just kind of think about it and reflect on your own life. How hard is it to get you to move forward from that growth mindset? So like, for instance, my example was with math. It would take me an awful lot of support to help get me past the, I can't do a system of equations because I just need that kind of scaffolding and support. So it's not going to be an easy thing for me, because it also would be admitting I don't know what I'm doing. Now, on the other hand, let's think about growth mindset. Can you recognize a time when you definitely had growth mindset, where the challenges were what excited you, where you didn't think your ability was capped? Again, you can write it in the chat if you want, or you just write it on a piece of paper. And can you remember how that feels? The first time you finished a triathlon, that's a time when you might be in a growth mindset where you didn't think you can do it. And then, yes, I didn't win, but boy, howdy, I got across that finish line. It feels really good. So this is from Carol Dweck's book, Mindset. And from page 16, it says, you have a choice. Mindsets are just beliefs. They are powerful beliefs, but they are just something in your mind, and you can change your mind. So now we are going to talk about why I think libraries are such a great springboard for growth mindset in staff. So the library has always been a place of growth. People come to us for information, for reading materials, to ask questions, to commune with others, expanding on their own understanding. So the library as a place of growth makes sense. So shouldn't the library staff also have a mindset of growth? But how do we get library workers to embrace this idea of growth mindset and curiosity? Well, I believe it starts with you. And whether you are the director or a circulation aide or department head or an IT person, you can model this, and it can, I think, be contagious. Now, if you are a person in charge or a manager, having experience with mindset, with growth mindset is important if you want to change the entire organization in this way. So in Dr. Dweck's book, she looks at all types of situations in which growth mindsets can be beneficial. Athletes with growth mindset find success in learning and improving, not just winning. So how might, again, this is a question just for your notes or for the chat, I guess, if you want, how might this look in a library? How might learning and improving, not just winning, look in the library? And what does success look like in a library? Because I think this year we are definitely finding that our model of before is not necessarily applicable. So if you just kind of take notes to yourself, you know, what does learning and improving look like in the library, and what does success look like in the library? Okay. All right, so we're wanting to switch from our mindset is fixed, we cannot get better, to we can, and our failures are a springboard for us to learn. So in many places, people operate under the assumption of mediocrity of the masses, where given the opportunity, people will not work and therefore they need to be coerced and directed and controlled to get them to do anything. Well, if this is what you expect in your workplace, this is what you'll get. Many people are also scared of failing, and then are doomed to stay average if they're not willing to push themselves. But what if we expected and modeled something different, and we assumed growth in our employees, ourselves, and our organizations? So how can a boss, supervisor, or coworker, so how as a boss, supervisor, or coworker can you instill the desire or acceptance of growth and not mediocrity? That's kind of like the big question. Daniel Pink gives 3 elements of motivation. So I think that one of the big ways to inspire growth is to give people, to motivate them. And Daniel Pink says autonomy, mastery, and purpose are 3 elements of motivation. Autonomy, being tasks and techniques are up to the staff. They have buy-in and time to mess up and learn. Mastery, employees are in charge of their own learning, support learning and skill development. And purpose, give the employees a why you are doing what you are doing. So autonomy, mastery, and purpose are going to be important going forward, thinking about making sure that staff, number 1, can kind of decide what they're wanting to get better at. Number 2, that you give them time to get better at what they want to get better at. And number 3, that it all comes back to the library's why. What does success look like in the library? In chapter 5 of her book, Mindset, Dr. Dweck gives lots of examples of leaders and CEOs who have rejected mediocrity in themselves and have challenged themselves to learn and to be curious. In those leaders who those leaders who did this found more success in business and had innovations that outlasted their tenure. So some of the things that they did, again, we're going to come back to the autonomy, mastery, and purpose. They developed teams and we think groups rather than groupthink. Leaders developed groups that were there to challenge each other, not to be yes men. So they worked with each other to develop mastery within groups, to challenge and give differing opinions so that what they finally came to as a decision was not just a first attempt. It was actually worked on and developed as a group during we think, not a group think. They fostered the desire to learn and gave options to grow. This is the autonomy and mastery portion. They changed their language from I can't to not yet, and worked on developing a culture at work where failure was acceptable. Again, this is where mastery comes in. If you are not able to make mistakes and not ever given the opportunity or autonomy to learn, then you will not, it doesn't increase your motivation. And they also worked on developing attainable goals. And both Daniel Pink and Dr. Dweck talk about performance goals versus learning goals. And Dr. Dweck says this about performance goals. When children are focused on measuring themselves from their performance, like ABC, like grades, failure is more likely to provoke a helpless response. But when children are instead focused on learning, failure is likely to provoke effort. Daniel Pink found similar things in his research, where when you give people learning goals, they are more likely to work on attaining them as instead of performance goals, because once you miss those, you failed and you're done. So working on getting performance goals out and learning goals in is another way to work on mastery and autonomy in learning and staff development. And you can do this by encourage the staff to read. And not just reading fiction books, but reading things that they're interested in. If they're interested in technical services, maybe have them get more acquainted with RDA, or more acquainted with the Sears subject headings, or something like that. Have them participate in trainings like KLA, or possibly even lead trainings. That's another way to help sharpen your skills. So I want you to think about your library now. Does your library, either your administration or your department, or even just you at the library, are you in a fixed mindset organization or a growth mindset organization? I think for me, the key thing is failure and whether or not failure is accepted as an okay thing or if it's not allowed. Okay, so go with growth. To move from a fixed to a growth mindset in myself and then staff was important for me. Giving myself the permission to be curious and to not do things right at the beginning was very important for me to move from this is where my skills are to, okay, this is where my skills are now, but I could get better. I'm not yet there. I needed to make sure that I could do this with my own self before I could at all try to say, oh, staff, this is what you need to do. And it works because I can't do it. No, we need to make sure we can practice it in ourselves before we start espousing it to our staff, especially if this is something that you are interested in. Well, and then I got this year, like many of you, things did not go as planned. And so this was for me the perfect year to start really like getting into a growth mindset and giving myself permission to fail, because 2020 has been lots of things. And most of them not what we wanted, but it did give us an opportunity to challenge assumptions of what we could and could not do in the library and gave us an opportunity to learn. So I think that growth mindset in this year for me has really been a gift. Because the mold that which many of us had been working under has been completely shaken, and being curious and finding out more about what could be done in libraries and looking outward at other libraries to see what is being done and re-examining what success looks like in a library. For me, that is my silver lining of 2020. So how did I start working on my mindset? And this is how I also, once I kind of figured out what worked for me, this is how I started working with my staff. So I started listening for fixed mindset language. Now, most of the time I didn't articulate, oh, I can't do that. But I had those little gremlins in my head saying, oh, Betsy, you're a dummy. You can't do that. No, stick with what you know. I can't do that. I didn't grow up with computers. I'm not good at math. Those are all languages of fixed mindsets. So first, when you start to actively listen for those, you find that they're all over the place. Then I started looking at challenges as an opportunity to learn. So I'm going to give you an example. I actually did have a system of equation question to answer, and this is like Algebra 2. I have done it before. It's been probably 20 years, and I tried it 4 different ways, 4 different times, and I was like, I can't do it right now. But then I took the math problem home to my husband, and he's an engineer, and he showed me how to do it. And I saw where I messed up, and I thought, okay, next time I can do it better, because now I see, oh, I forgot that a negative minus, like when you subtract a negative number, that's really like adding a positive number. Totally forgot about that. It was important in that equation. So instead of seeing that as, oh, this is a failed attempt, I suck at math, I don't ever want to do it again, I took it home, I talked to an expert, and he showed me a way to do it. And so now I have remembered I learned a little bit more, and I'm thinking, okay, if given a system of equation again, I think I'll be more comfortable with it. So once you can listen for the fixed mindset language, then you can start switching those from fixed mindset, I can't, to the language of growth. Like I'm not able to do it yet, or with some practice and time and effort, this is attainable. So like that math problem, I couldn't do it a couple days ago, but I bet you I can do a lot better today because I studied it, I practiced it, and I see where my error was going forward. I think I can do it better. In meetings or when people are giving you feedback, be less defensive about mistakes. This is really hard. When people say you did this bad or did this wrong or this, like, you really look stupid, instead of being defensive and going, "Ah," just sit in it. It hurts, it sucks, but it allows you to think about it in a not blocked mind. Think about it as, okay, I can grow through this, and be responsive to that feedback. You can also create more learning experiences for yourself. And bosses, if you're going to create, or if you're going to ask learning to happen for the library, at the library, make sure you give time for it. But yeah, create learning experiences. If somebody is interested in changing I don't know how, if you're going to genreify the library, like, make sure you give time for them to do adequate research on how this is going to impact user experience. Like, make sure that if you're going to ask people to do and to learn, that you do give time. And most importantly for staff, model curiosity and growth mindset if you are a person in charge. So if you're going to ask the staff to be curious and ask them to accept failures and ask them to be open, be open-minded and not set, oh, I can't do this. Make sure that you are also using that same language. And then also make sure that you hear that you foster opportunities to hear alternate views. This goes from the we think, the group think, to the we think. If the only answer that you ever hear is yes, you're not challenging yourself. So make sure that you do get situations where you can be reflective on, oh, maybe my answer is not the best. How can I get to a better response? So something that I'm actually having my staff do today for how they are reflecting on KLA is to do a 3-2-1 exercise. And it is it's for kids, but I thought it could be applicable for adults in their learning. So having staff do things like this, where instead of writing down like little summaries of all the sessions that they went to, which you could pretty much just copy paste what the session notes were, I want to know, what are 3 things that they learned? So again, they're sitting back, they're reflecting. 2 things that they want to know more about, and then 1 question that they still have. So this is the 3-2-1 exercise. 3 things that you learned, 2 things that you want to know more, that you want to learn more about, and 1 question that you still have. So this says, I have learned, I'm still interested in learning, and I'm questioning some of the things that I thought I knew. As requesting or asking you, requesting that they are reflective and are challenging assumptions on what they knew. So this is how I kind of got myself, ready to foster desire to learn in myself. I switched over to my staff. Some of the things that I did in the library on purpose I have modeled curiosity and failure. And this is something that I do think is really important, especially if you're the person in charge, that you are curious and that you are okay with failing. And failing to me, I don't like the word failure. And that's probably part of my perfectionism, growth, fixed mindset talking, but I like to say what didn't go as expected instead of failure. But modeling curiosity and that things not going as they anticipated is an okay thing. We also do a lot of questioning. What happens if it fails? What happens if it didn't go as expected? Well, for a lot of things, like, if we do an online program and 2 people show up, it's okay. It really, and we tried something, it didn't look like we thought it might, but that's okay. Also, this year has really given us an opportunity to look at what success looks like in a library. So, is having what we thought was, meaning success, having 20,000 people through the door, is that success? Well, my foot traffic has really gone down. So that was one of the ways that we measured success in our library. And that's not how we can measure success this year. So, definitely questioning what success looks like is another thing that we've tried to develop growth mindset in my library. I've also tried to praise effort and strategy. This goes back to those performance versus learning goals. We switched automation systems last year, and that was something that was really hard. And learning a new system. And you know what? We did not get everything right the first time, even we had it for a while, but we praised effort and strategy, not success. I've also allowed, and the question that I often will ask to my staff and with patrons, and when I taught with my students, is show me how you got there. And that is a way to praise effort. And so it also allows you to see, okay, they got 75% the way there, doing it right, or everything made sense until this point. And then it helps them, springboard them to, okay, this is where I messed up. How could I get better the next time? Instead of saying, oh, you didn't do it, you failed, get out. And then also giving autonomy. I have some staff that are very interested in different things. And so giving them time to work on those skills. Like right now, if you have somebody who is interested in video editing, you have like the best gift the library gods could give you. And like, make sure that, if you have somebody who has that kind of interest, let them work on that. Let them get better at that. So this last little bit is something that I have started adding to all of my staff meetings. And this comes from the book Radical Candor by Kim Scott. And it encourages sharing mistakes or things that didn't go as expected. Scott pairs this with encouraging praise and self-admitted critique. So at the beginning of every staff meeting, I say what went well. And that's always really fun to, make sure that people say, oh yeah, this went great. This went awesome. I felt really good about this. And then the question is, what didn't go as expected? And this one is a little bit harder, but this is what's really important to make sure that you're saying, I support you in the failures and the things that didn't go well. And then we work then we talk about how could we do them better. So so you whoops the monkey, like what didn't go well? You know what? We thought we were going to have, XYZ happen and it didn't. I'm not quite sure what went wrong. Next time, I think we might look at marketing differently or whatever. Giving voice to the things that didn't go as expected gives you the opportunity to make them go better next time. And Killer Whale is the praise element to this technique. So she has Killer Whale and Whoops the Monkey. And if you're interested, it's page 166 in chapter 6 of Radical Candor. So I'm talking faster than I did in my practices because I am at 32 minutes. But this is definitely a work in progress, and my application of growth mindset and supporting my staff is definitely also evolving. And every once in a while, I definitely get those little gremlins in my head telling me that I'm dumb and I can't do it. And like you should just stop while you're ahead. And I'm still working on tamping them down. And even this, my presentation for this, I had tried to model in myself the incremental learning challenges where I said, okay, I'm going to read this book and I'm going to journal about it. And then in February, there was a tiny library talk that was a 15-minute conversation. And I was like, okay, I think I can learn enough to put together 15 minutes. And so I really started doing this incrementally, trying to model in my own learning the learning versus performance challenges, or excuse me, goals. And then I got to October and I was like, I just want to watch Schitt's Creek and sit on my couch. And I did that. And then after a few nights of doing that, I did get back on it. I decided, nope, my learning and my growth is worth getting back on. It was getting a little bit hard, not specifically this, working on this was hard, but other elements of my life were getting a little bit difficult at the beginning of October. And so I just didn't want to deal with this. And so again, I was able to sit back, kind of relax, be more refreshed, less stressed, and get myself back into a positive growth mindset, where I was able to learn and grow and continue on my journey. So this is my resource sheet. So some of these things are about motivation. Some of these things are about growth mindset. And I have, I want to add 2 more resources because I was a teacher librarian. I have to encourage the reading of picture books. And so my first one is The Most Magnificent Things. And this book, if I had time, I'd read it to you because it's really great. But it's a little girl who knows what she's going to make, and she starts making it and she doesn't get it right. And then she tries it again, and then she tries it again, and then she tries it again, and nothing was working how she thought it was supposed to in her head. And so she got frustrated and she walked away from it. And then she came back and she looked and she was like, you know what? This part was good. This part was good. This part was good. This part was good. And it really highlights her persistence and her resilience and her ability to make something magnificent out of a bunch of things that she didn't think were worth anything. So The Most Magnificent Thing by Ashley Spires, very good. And then The Dot by Peter Reynolds. And this really is like growth mindset 101. There's a little girl in here, Vashti, and she can't draw. And her art teacher says, well, just put your pen, put something on the paper and write your name next to it. And the art teacher supported her. She did not see her dot as a failure. She saw this as Vashti's piece of art. And then Vashti started seeing it as a piece of art, and she started growing and started practicing. And then pretty soon she was an artist, and people were seeking her attention and her input on how to become a better artist. So she went from a very fixed, I can't do it, to I can't do it yet. Or with time and input, or time and effort, I can do it. So those are my 2 children's book suggestions, and they are very good. If nothing else, just read those 2 books. And here's my contact information. And I don't know.
Well,
Okay,
you could
I don't
open it
know
for questions. Let's
if
see.
we have like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So does
well, we
anybody have questions? Mike Lang, yes.
Hey, I have a question for you. Now, is this all like when you're talking about your employees, is this an all or nothing strategy, or are you balancing growth goals with performance goals? Because I mean, there are some tasks that are performance based, like for us, which we don't have a problem with, but we have to get the mail out daily so people get their books.
Yeah. So for me, this is like, there are some basic like circulation in and out. Those are tasks that like need to be performed at like 100% accuracy because that's just like a very basic function. But these are for more of those more of those subjective kind of goals. It's like, oh, well, I want to, increase productivity or, shorten the time of material in technical services by 10%. Well, okay, how are we going to do this? Like practicing and allowing that that goal to be to allow some flexibility and some failure in that goal to actually get a better system rather than just say, oh, you didn't make the mark, now you're done. Does that help? Okay. Anybody else have questions, thoughts?
There's a few comments in the chat.
Oh, yes.
So let's see here. Let me back up a bit. So in regard to your question about feeling smart or what have you. So Melanie from Pioneer Memorial Library says that new experiences are what she likes. And
Yes.
Tamara Riggs, she's a teacher librarian. I feel smart when I am learning and using a growth mindset. In schools talk about growth mindset, but a lot of times schools move back over to a fixed mindset when want everything to be perfect and no challenges. So
well, it's so much easier to grade a fixed mindset than it is a growth mindset. And so like yes.
Yeah.
My kid's school has a lot of the like, you can do it, reach for the stars kind of like posters. And so I think there are a lot of situations, and I hope I'm not one of them, where it's just a superficial growth mindset where you espouse it, but you don't actually practice it. So yeah.
Someone else made a comment that there's a sense of fear in a fixed mindset. And
Yes.
So
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah, one of the things that Dweck talks about a lot is those folks who are in fixed mindsets. And when I look at people, and I'm going to say politics right now, is that I think that a lot of those guys are operating under fixed mindset, because in fixed mindset, there's a lot of blaming and a lot of putting, saying, oh, this can't possibly be me, it's somebody else's fault, or like name calling and things like that, trying to elevate your own stature to make you feel smarter and feel better about things. And but blaming and putting other people down is a hallmark of a fixed mindset.
Yeah, and then Mary Beth Schaefer from Central Kansas Library System notes that when training IT, I noticed that people went into learning tech with a positive attitude. Those that did that did learn. And those that went in already thinking that they couldn't do it or didn't want to learn it did not.
Yeah.
So success is when a patron's face lights up when they learn or find the information they wanted.
Yes, absolutely.
Lots of great comments here. And I will save this chat so you can all go back and look at what everybody commented about. Yeah, time is so key. It's hard to be a creative, innovative thinker, try something new without time. And we all, those of us in libraries know about that time thing. So, so Michael from CKLS said that he read a book, Rejection Proof by, I'm going to slaughter the name, Jai Zhang. And it's related to changing your mindset about failure. He's also got a TED Talk. So,
cool. Ooh, 100 Days of Rejection. That sounds terrifying.
Well, yeah, so great information in our chat. So really nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys all for participating. And I do hope that you did, if nothing else, read The Dot and The Most Magnificent Thing. They're excellent. And have a good rest of the day if there's no more questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Betsy, and really appreciate you presenting. So everyone, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to end the recording now.